structure and it is protected by the cranial bones. There are small pieces of bones joined together and the vertebra that surrounds it. Now, there is pair of spinal nerves that you all know when you have studied in the previous section of the neuron. I told you about the pair of spinal nerves. That means there are 31 different levels of the spine. So the pair of nerves, one is attached to the left side of our body and the other is attached to the right side of the body. That means it controls the left portion of our body, and while the right pairs, it controls the, or right pair of nerves controls the right portion of our body. Now there are two places where it bulges. So that is the cervical region and the other at the lumbar region. So there are two places where it bulges. Number one, it is the cervical region, and number two, it is the lumbar region. So you can get these some short MCQ questions like what are the two sections that bulges? Like they are the cervical region and the lumbar region. Now there are a number of vertebra that surrounds it, and there are two deep grooves in the spinal cord. What are they? They are the anterior median fissure and the posterior median sulcus. So there are two deep grooves rather in the spinal cord, and in the middle known as the anterior median fissure and the posterior median sulcus. Now there are nerve roots that enter and leave the spinal cord. So the dorsal nerve root, it helps to send the information from the sensory receptor to the spinal cord. And the ventral nerve root, it carries motor information from the spinal cord to the parts of the body. So just the opposite. Now if you see in a cross-section way the spinal cord, then it is evident that it is comprises of two different areas. What are they? They are the gray matter and the white matter. And the inner core is just like an H-shaped area, capital H-shaped area, which comprises this gray colored matter, and is mostly it constitutes with the cell bodies and unmyelinated interneurons. Okay, so the surrounding area, it comprises of white matter which constitutes the myelinated axons. So these are all about the structures of the spinal cord. Now what are the functions of spinal cord? Let us see. Now there are several functions of spinal cord. The spinal cord, it is responsible mostly for the simple reflexes that are taking place in the body. And the neurons of the spinal cord are responsible for sending the information to the brain from the sensory receptors, that means the eye, ear, nose, touch, skin, etc. and to deliver the information received from the brain to the muscles and other glands of the body. Now, while we study the spinal cord, we will go through some important organs or tracts or name of some tracts, like there are some bundle of nerves together known as tract, T-R-A-C-T. Now, each tract serves one major function. That means there are various tracts. Now, each tract has individual functions. So, the spinothalamic tract, it is one type of tract which includes the axons that originate from the cell bodies of the neurons located in the spinal cord that end in the thalamus. Now, these tracts are responsible for the sensory functions. That means the touch, pain, the temperature, etc. The sensation of all these. And there are some major ascending tracts of the spinal cord that serve important functions like the lateral spinothalamic tract. Its function, its individual function is the responsibility of pain, temperature, touch, and the anterior spinothalamic tract is involved in crude touch and pressure. Fascicule gracilis is involved in only touch and conscious kinesthesia. Now, what do you mean by this kinesthesia? Kinesthesia is the awareness of the position and movement of the parts of the body by means of sensory organs in the muscles and joints. I am again repeating what is kinesthesia. Kinesthesia, it is the awareness of the position and movement of the parts of the body by means of sensory organs in the muscles and joints. So, these are some of the important functions of this particular tract. Now, this fascicule gracilis is involved in only touch and conscious kinesthesia, and this anterior and the posterior spinocerebral tract is involved in subconscious kinesthesia. Subconscious means there are three stages of consciousness. Okay, the conscious, subconscious, and the unconscious. Right. So, in the subconscious state of kinesthesia, it is responsible for only this type of functions. Okay. Now, the major descending tracts of the spinal cord are two, mainly the lateral and the anterior corticospinal tract, which has some individual functions like it involved in only the voluntary movement, and that is we can control the movement which we can control. That means the muscle contraction of hands or feet, that means movement of our limbs. Then medial reticulospinal tracts have some inhibitory influence on motor functioning, while the lateral reticulospinal tract have a facilitatory influence on the motor neurons going to the skeletal muscles and the rubrospinal tract, which helps in coordinating body movement and posture. Now, let me tell you one thing. When you will study these functions of spinal cord, you just note all the tracts, the name of the tracts, and just write the functions of each tract. Then only you can remember all these name of the tract and the individual functions. Okay. Now, the spinal cord, mostly its function is to serve as a reflex center for many reflexes, and it is the center of the reflex arc, wherein number one, the incoming sensory impulses are converted to the outgoing motor impulses. That means the conversion of the incoming sensory impulses to the outgoing motor impulses. So these are all about the functions of these individual tracts present in the spinal cord, and thus the main important role of the spinal cord is the integrator. It is the integrator center in the brain and being responsible for gait, posture, reflexes, reaction to some noxious stimuli. Now, what is this noxious stimuli? Do you know? any toxic stimuli or any negative stimuli that is that you can see. Okay, so these or see or you can feel. So that is the noxious stimuli. So the next slide, I will start with the brain. Now, what is brain? It is located at the top of the CNS or central nervous system, and it is protected by the skull, which is a bony structure, and the it is interconnected with the body parts with the brain stem region to the spinal cord. Now this PNS, it extends from the brain to the regions throughout the body and back again, sends and receives this neural signals that provide the informations related to number one, pain, number two, pressure, or touch. That means see all the sensory actions. Okay, pain, pressure, touch, movement, balance, and the senses of vision, audition, smell, as well as taste. So the cortex or the neocortex is the seat of the human cognition and the sensory processing. So uh, before start, while I will start all the structures, so I will start with some slide view of the brain. That means if the brain is sliced using three planes, and these planes resemble to actual slicing done, for instance, at the time of post-mortem examination, or virtual slicing using this magnetic resonance images of the brain that you have studied already in the first chapter. Magnetic resonance images of the brain. So there are three planes. If you see in the sliced or in during the post-mortem examination, you can see that the slicing sideways. See, there is a diagram or figure 3.5 in your study material where it is shown clearly segregated or divided into, see, the sagittal plane, the anatomical localization and planes in the human brain, mainly the lateral, the medial, and here that means medial is the middle portion, while lateral left and lateral right, both the sections on both sides of medial, and the coronal plane, see, in just at the bottom of this structure of brain, and on the extreme left, the upper portion is the dorsal, while the lower portion is the ventral, that is the axial horizontal plane. So this is a side view of this left hemisphere of brain. So the same picture is on the right side of the brain. If you take the picture from the right side of the brain, then the same thing you can see just on the opposite side. So this is one figure or one way of seeing the hemispheres or the horizontal while we just during the post-mortem. If you slice, then you can see that there is an axial slice, there is an horizontal slice, and there is a sagittal slice, and there is a coronal slice. So what are they? So I will tell you in brief. The slicing sideways across the brain so that the left and right hemisphere are exposed is known as the axial slice on both the side of the brain, that is right and left, and it is also called another name, that is the horizontal slice, because it is a horizontal cut across the brain. And the second way to slice the brain is the sagittal slice. So if you cut like this, then you will find that you will see that these are the way, or these are the sections of the brain you can see. The sagittal plane slices the brain vertically from left side to the right side. And the coronal slice is when the brain is sliced vertically from the front of the brain to the back. Now, the other related terms are that I told you, the dorsal, that is indicating the top portion of the brain, the ventral, that means the bottom of the brain, then the front of the brain, it is the anterior, and the back portion, it is the posterior. So, the dorsal, ventral, anterior, and posterior. And the middle part of the brain is referred as the medial section, and the left and right outside edges are called the lateral. Okay. So these terms are used to denote where the region in the brain is located, and once you are familiar with these terms, then you will be able to identify the relative location of the brain area. So this is one way of seeing the main structures of the brain. But there are some other figures in your study material that you can see. That is 3.6. Here it is given that all the different individual parts, that means where is the frontal lobe, the limbic lobe, the parietal lobe, then where is the white ring-like section is the corpus callosum, then the orange-like portion just above the pons, it is the stratum, and the pineal gland, there is a gland just at the bottom of this orange ring-like section, it is the pineal gland. Now, mainly the portions of the brain, if you see from this angle, that is the frontal lobe, the limbic lobe, the parietal lobe, and the occipital lobe. Then, what are the organs, or what are the organs present in this particular region? Now, let us see. So you all know that an adult brain is a large organ. It is the controlling system of the whole body, and approximately 1.5 kg. It weighs approximately 1.5 kg in an adult person, and it is very soft and jelly-like structure, or substance. The brain, it keeps growing till one reaches an age of 18 years. So it is a very, very delicate organ, and it is protected by a bony structure known as skull. And there is a layer, the first layer, you all know that